Hi, I went to a Dyslexia conference earlier this week with a few other teachers from Deerfield Elementary, and I wanted to share some of the things that we heard there. There were a few speakers that had some interesting things that were new thoughts for me. One of the the presenters was Linda Farrell, and she talked about using decodable and leveled readers appropriately in the right way. She talked about how a lot of reading programs are based on the work of a guy named Ken Goodman. And she had a little soundbite of him talking about how he felt like it was okay if when students came to the word horse or pony, if they said horse. And she disagreed with that. She said early readers shouldn't be taught to guess the words using pictures and hints and things and use phonics if all else fails, that they should be taught to depend on phonics and really in the beginning only given things that can be decoded using what they've been taught. She pointed out that a lot of leveled readers introduce words that students have no hope of sounding out and they have to guess and use the pictures to find meaning. And the teachers sometimes play guessing games with students, giving hints from the pictures. Younger early readers, she's saying, should be taught to focus on phonics and expect accuracy for themselves. So she showed a couple of texts from some prominent literacy providers and talked about how they're great for reading aloud and improving listening comprehension, but that giving these texts to beginning readers who are learning to decode is training them to rely on the pictures and make guesses. For example, this one with the fruit includes the word orange, which is really difficult to decode. And the repetition in this book, this is an orange, this is a banana, and the next page says this is an apple, means that the kids aren't really decoding the book. They're picking up on a pattern and just repeating it and looking at the pictures. She also looked at this text, and it's kind of small to see, but it uses the word mosquito, which is a Spanish word and doesn't follow English phonetic rules. She also pointed out in this text, it uses the word bear, which has a different EAR pronunciation than near. And that's not good for decodables, but these are both labeled emergent readers for young readers. She's saying you slow down their phonetic progression by throwing in these words that they have to be told or guess. Few readers who weren't already exposed to these words somewhere else could get these words on their own. So she's saying decodable readers, they only have phonics patterns that have been taught. They only have high frequency words that have been taught. The subject matter doesn't really matter. It should be all about decoding. You start with CVC words, work on more complex things. It shouldn't be really much about comprehension at this point. It's just decoding, and the pictures support the story, but the pictures aren't there to give away certain words. She gave an example of this good decodable reader. Mud is in the tub. Gus can rub in the mud. So you can see the same sound being used over and over again. She talked about how leveled readers are good for other things. You might use them for read alouds or for echo reading, where you read something and then they repeat what you read. For oral discussion, developing concepts of print, and decodable readers are what you use to really build those reading skills in the beginning. Phonics, patterns, high frequency words, accuracy, and getting a comprehension that comes from what they read. She had this chart showing the progression of reading, what skills should come first. It's a little bit hard to read. I'll try and share that with you somewhere else. And she suggested that we eliminate these guessing strategies for decoding. If you don't know a word, look at the picture, look at the first letter, and guess based on the context. Read to the end of the sentence and determine what word fits. Look for parts of the word you know from other words. And I could see this maybe being more useful in older grades, but for an early reader who's learning to decode, I think I agree with this, that they shouldn't be taught. These are all guessing strategies. So she also shared how she does like a reading group for phonics. She has decodable text, and it's hard to see. Again, it's small, but in this text, each of these sections, it's telling a story, but the sections have the same words over and over again happening. Chad, mom, dad, bathtub, the same patterns. We have two-syllable words with short vowels and digraphs f, ch, and k. The heart words are what she's calling sight words, so you can see these same sight words are happening over and over again. And the student will come back to the table, and one student will read this first passage. And she's just looking at accuracy. They're not being timed. She just wants to see them decode all of it by themselves, accuracy. If the student reads with 100%, then the next time they read, they move on to a different passage. If the student doesn't read with 100% accuracy, the next time it's their turn at the table to read, they'll read that same passage. So the kid reads this, and she usually had 3 people at her back table in her small groups. The first kid reads this, the second kid will read this, the third kid will read this, and then if the first kid didn't get 100%, they read this again. But if they did get 100%, they go on and read this passage, this section right here. And then she keeps track of them on a chart that looks like this. So this student was reading from a passage called Sun and Mud. She's got these 3 days in a row. The student was called back. The first day, the student read a passage that had 37 words. You'll notice the number of words is different, and that's because the number of words in these passages are different. So it just depends on what the kid was reading. So in this first one, they read 31 out of 37. The teacher moved around the circle, and when they came back to that student, they read 36 out of 37. The teacher went around the circle again, each student taking a turn reading, and the last time they got 37 out of 37. And while the kids are reading, the other kids are supposed to be tracking with their finger, so following the patterns while someone else is reading. The second day, they had gotten 100% on this, so they started a new pattern. It took them 2 tries, and this third day, they read it in one go. So she has these passages broken up into, sorry, I lost it. She has these passages broken up into levels. And once a group has finished all the levels, she has them go back and read it again, but this time she's looking for rate. And so she has a chart that will mark their rate, but she gets the accuracy part down first. She has a site called Readsters where she has a lot of these tracking charts, just more materials. And if any of you are interested in trying this with especially younger grades, please let me know. I thought this was really interesting, and I would love to help someone set something up that would run their phonics in this way. Thank you for listening all the way to the end.